Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Zach, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the Jurassic Park strategy game by Funko. This is the expansion pack that includes the T-Rex and Ian Malcolm. I actually have a video on the channel that unboxes the core box, so if you haven't seen that, I do recommend watching that because I kind of go over some of the general aspects of the game. So without further delay, guys, let's go ahead and jump right into this unboxing. We're going to begin with the characters. For this standalone expansion, we get the T-Rex as well as Ian Malcolm. The T-Rex looks pretty good. He's almost a little too similar to the Raptor. Of course, in the original movie, the coloring and stuff is kind of similar. Of course, the T-Rex does have the bigger head and doesn't have the sickle claw, so you can easily tell them apart, but they are a little bit too similar in this game. We're going to set aside the tokens, the points, which are the amber pieces, as well as the die, because that's all the same from the core box, and we're going to dive now into a little bit more depth on the playable characters. So we do have two basic characters to utilize. That is the Gallimimus and the Scientist. These are just super generic characters that you can use if you don't have enough main characters to utilize. So if you don't have like one of the core boxes or another expansion, because this is technically a standalone expansion, meaning you can play just this expansion pack, which could be a good cheap way to get into the game to see if you like the style before you buy the more expensive core box. You will only have these 4 characters to draw from, so that'll only be 2 per team. The standard is 3 per team, but there is one map in this expansion pack because the map is dual-sided. One side of the map is actually a half scale map, so having only 2 players per team would actually not be that bad on that map just because it is so much smaller. Moving on, we have the fan favorite T-Rex. This is actually a pretty cool character because it's pretty unique from my experience with the Funko strategy games, because it gets 2 ability points of the same color. So if you look at Ian Malcolm, his card is a little bit more similar to what I've seen so far with the Funko strategy games, where you get 2 ability points, but they're different colors. So for example, he has a 2 blue ability that is must go faster. The 2 means it takes 2 turns for that ability to cool down before he can get that ability point back. So if he uses the must go faster, it'll be 2 turns before he gets that blue token back to be able to spend it again. With the T-Rex, since it has 2 red of the same color, that means it could technically use the same ability back to back, giving you a little bit more flexibility in your strategy on how you're going to encounter your opponents and take control of this scenario. So the T-Rex is also a pretty aggressive character from first glance. They have a Chomp, which is a 4 cooldown ability, so it does have a big cooldown, but it's a challenge 4, which is insane. So for reference, a default challenge is a challenge of 2, and I covered all this in the core unboxing, but if you haven't seen that video yet, I will go over the basics of challenges, essentially because challenges are such a core aspect of the game. So with that being said, a challenge is essentially a die roll-off between an attacking character and a defending character. So if the player that controls the T-Rex decides to use the Chomp ability, that is a challenge 4, meaning that that player will get to utilize 4 die in the challenge roll-off. On the defensive side, the number of die you get is determined by the number in the shield icon, which is located on the bottom left of your cards. So if the T-Rex was attacking Ian Malcolm in this scenario, and the player decided to use the Chomp ability, the attacking player will get 4 die, while the defending character will only get 1 die in the fight of the T-Rex versus Ian Malcolm. That is a high probability win for the T-Rex, essentially because it's a 4-1, but it's not actually guaranteed win. So Ian Malcolm could technically still win. It's a very small chance, but he could win in that face-off. Before we end our discussion on the characters, there is one final thing I want to talk about, and that is the traits. So the trait is the ability on the bottom of the major character cards. So for Ian Malcolm, that is the Chaos Theorist. These are a free ability, meaning that you don't have to spend an ability point to utilize them, but they are only triggered by certain events in the game. So for example, let's go over Ian Malcolm's because his is actually very cool. His is Chaos Theorist, and it says that whenever Ian would roll a die, he replaces one of the standard die with a Chaos die. So real quick, we'll go over the dies and how that ties in and how that is actually very cool and also very chaotic and fits Ian perfectly. So a standard die has 3 attacking icons, which is the same icon as a challenge, which means that if you roll that and you're on the attacking side, that counts as a win for you. they also have 2 shield icons, which means that if you're a defender and you get a shield icon, that counts as a win for you. Now on the standard die, there is also one side that has a set of 3 exclamations. That means that regardless of whether you're the attacker or the defender, that counts as a success for you, but it actually counts as 3 successes, so it's a very good thing to get. Now Ian Malcolm's die is a chaos die. It has 3 sides that are completely blank, meaning that if you get that, regardless of whether you're attacking or defending, it counts as nothing. But it has 3 of the exclamation mark sets, meaning that Ian Malcolm essentially has a 50% chance to get no benefit with his die roll, or he also has a chance to get 3 successes. So in that scenario of the T-Rex roll-off, for example, if the T-Rex rolls, maybe, let's say he got a pretty good roll, but not a great roll. He didn't get any triple successes, but he did get 3 attacking icons and 1 defending icon, meaning that the T-Rex got 3 successes overall. Ian Malcolm only gets a single defensive die to roll, but it's his chaos die, and he rolls one of his triple successes, the exclamation mark set, meaning that he got 3 successes too, meaning that Ian Malcolm would have won that fight that we talked about earlier. So that's just a very cool die. It has the good chance of messing with you and giving you absolutely no benefit, but it also has a 50% chance for a triple success. So it is very cool and definitely fits Ian Malcolm perfectly. I think that's pretty cool that they did, things like custom die for that. Now the chaos die might be called something else in the Harry Potter universe, because there also is a Harry Potter version of this strategy game. So there might be the same thing, it's just called something different in the other packs. But I thought it was actually pretty interesting that at least they're thinking about different ways to put a spin on these characters and make them unique in their own different ways. All right, so that wraps up the discussion on the characters, and now we'll move on to the maps. The game board is reversible, meaning that there are 2 different maps included with this expansion pack. For our first map, we have the T-Rex breakout scene, and I personally love it. I think it's very cool. It really captures in a game board that scene in the movie, and I do really like the art style that Funko went with here. It has a hint of realism, but it just has a overall aesthetic that is really appealing, and I think it makes a very cool map. Now, I don't want to dive into the playability of the map and how replayable it is and how much the scenarios add to that aspect, because I haven't actually played the game yet. But like I said in the core box unboxing, I will be playing this in the future with the boys, and I hope to record that gameplay to give you guys a little bit better insight into how the game actually plays. And then after that, I will do a full review of the game and how good it actually is, if it's something more just to buy as a collector piece, if you're into that kind of things, or if it is just a fun board game to play on family game night. So let's go ahead and flip the map over, and we'll look at the second map that is included in this expansion. So our second map is the lab from the visitor center. You can actually see the ride that Dr. Grant and company rode on in the top right. So that's pretty cool. Honestly, I love the art style and everything still. But the only thing that I can really say negatively about this map is that it is a half-scale map. Now, there might be a valid reason for that, because the standalone expansion, as its name implies, can be played with just the contents of this box. And if you are playing with just the contents of the box, you are only going to be playing with a total of 4 characters, so 2 per side. And in the core box, you can actually play with 3 characters per team. Now, in all the scenarios, you do have an option of playing with 2 characters per team or 3 characters per team. So with a smaller team of only 2 characters, it might make more sense to have a smaller map, simply so everything's not so spread out. So a small map might actually have a valid reason for being included. Now, since this is a cheaper pack, if that is purely for cost savings, I honestly don't know if it's really worth it, because on the scale that Funko is going to be printing these type of things, I'm sure it's not a huge cost savings for having half the game board in full color and half of it only in black and white. I mean, there are going to be some cost of savings associated with, but I do think there are some missed opportunities, especially if you're assuming that you're going to pair this with the core box or going to be playing this with other universes. For example, I think it would have personally been cool to see this map actually have the control center too, and have like 2 distinct zones that you can go between. There could be some cool strategy elements there, and it would have been awesome to see the control center visualized in this style too. So until I actually play it, I don't know if there's a valid reason for having a small map yet at this point in time. When I do play through, I'll play through with just the contents from this pack. So you'll have the two basic characters and then the T-Rex and Ian Malcolm, and see if it's more enjoyable playing with 4 characters on a small map versus on a large map, to see if there is a valid reason. So keep an eye out for that future follow-up video in the future. So that concludes today's unboxing. I definitely think this game looks cool. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but it definitely has a very cool art style. We just got to kind of play through it and see if it is going to be something that's going to be replayable, or if it's something that is going to be more for a collector's shelf that maybe you pop out every once in a while just to play through a quick game. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, Zach out.